Okay, I already recorded this once, but there was one thing I had to change, and I don't want to put out information that's wrong, so I changed it and I'm redoing it. If you've been following along, hopefully you have, going through the book of Daniel, you know that we are through chapter 7. There is a great deal of imagery in this book relating to the end times, and because we are going to encounter more than we have already, and we have encountered a lot in chapters 2 and 7, but we're going to encounter more in chapters 8 and 11, so I wanted to put this kind of graphic together to show you how everything links together, because it does. We were first introduced in Daniel 2 to the statue. We'll start up here, to the statue parts. There is a 4-part statue composed of head of gold, chest and arms of silver, belly and thighs of brass, and legs of iron, feet of iron, and miry clay. We are also introduced to 4 beasts, which correlate directly to the 4 parts of the statue. These 4 beasts are introduced in Daniel 7 as the lion, the bear, the leopard, and the beast which is diverse and has 10 horns. These represent the kingdoms. Both the 4-part statue and the 4 beasts represent 4 kingdoms. The one at the present, when the visions were given, Babylon. Babylon would fall to Medo-Persia. Medo-Persia would fall to Greece. And eventually, the final kingdom, the final beast with the 10 horns, 10 kings, is actually described in the book of Revelation as the end times king and kingdom. There is a very close correlation to Revelation 13 and 17 as we went through in the video discussing Daniel 7, so I will not spend a lot of time on that. However, that takes us through Daniel 2 and Daniel 7. We have not gone through Daniel 8 yet. However, when we do, we're going to be introduced to more imagery that we need to be able to make associations with. We're going to be introduced to a ram with 2 horns, which represents, we are specifically told, the Medes and the Persians. 2 horns, Medes, and Persians. That is describing the transition between Kingdom 2 and Kingdom 3. Kingdom 2 being the Medes and Persians, and Kingdom 3 being Greece. There is a ram with 2 horns, like I said, representing the Medes and the Persians, that is overtaken by the goat with the great horn between its eyes that represents the Greek kingdom. The horn is going to be broken. The great horn between the eyes of the goat is going to be broken. And there's going to be 4 kingdoms that come out of that same nation. The first horn is Antiochus Epiphanes. There is a prophecy that he would, similarly to what we know of the beast in the end times, hopefully you guys know about Daniel 9's prophecy, where it talks about in the midpoint of the 70th week, this outstanding week of years, this end times prophecy, this 7 years determined upon unbelievers, specifically Israel, during which this beast and 10 kings will arise. So there's going to be similarity that we find. We find great similarity between Antiochus Epiphanes, which was horn 1 of the 4 horns that came out of the one who transitioned empires from Medo-Persia to Greek, the one who was responsible for that transition. We will come to learn that's Alexander the Great. However, after Alexander the Great came Antiochus Epiphanes. He was a foreshadowing of the beast that will be in the 4th kingdom. We know that he caused desolation at the temple by sacrificing an unclean animal. There is a verse in there that tells us that the temple was desolated for 2,300 days. The close translation of that actually says 2,300 evenings and mornings. That's important because there were sacrifices in the evenings and in the mornings. So when it's 2,300 sacrifices, not 2,300 days, it's 2,300 evenings and mornings, 2,300 sacrifices, which means it was desolated actually for 1,150 days There are 2 sacrifices per day, so it was desolated for a period of 2,300 sacrifices. This is not 2,300 days. There are too many people who try to insert that 2,300 somewhere, somehow in the end times. It is unrelated. It related to Antiochus Epiphanes in the 3rd kingdom mentioned in the book of Daniel. It has nothing to do with the beast of the 4th kingdom in the book of Daniel, which is what is related to the end times, specifically the 70th week. However, what we're told in Daniel 8 is there's horn 1, Antiochus Epiphanes. Then there's 4 horns because, like we learned, the goat with the great horn between its eyes, that horn was broken and 4 other horns came up. So you have Antiochus Epiphanes as horn 1. Then at the end of those period of times, at the end of their kingdoms, there's going to come another beast that's going to arise. This is the transition from the 3rd kingdom to the 4th kingdom. These are color-coded so you know which is related. These light blue are related. Actually, I will change the color on that because that is not related to anything. So this gray is color-coded to Babylon. This light blue is color-coded to Medes and Persians. The dark blue is color-coded to Greece. And the black is color-coded to the 70th week beast kingdom, beast and 10 kings, 10 horns. So after at the end of the Greek Empire, there will come 3 other rulers after Antiochus Epiphanes from the Greek Empire. And at the end of that, you're going to see a transition from number 3 to number 4. This number 4 is described as the king of fierce countenance that's going to stand up, and he's going to run roughshod over everyone. The same thing that we learned about in Daniel 7. I haven't gone through Daniel 8 yet in video, so I will discuss this more when we do, but I just wanted to show you how this all correlates. Antiochus Epiphanes and the beast with the 10 kings are both talked about in Daniel 8. They are also both talked about in Daniel 11. When next we meet this imagery, there is a sequence of historical events that is given in Daniel 11. And you're going to see 3 of the 4 kingdoms mentioned in this sequence. In Daniel 11, it starts out by talking about the kings of Persia, because the Persian Empire was what they were in when Daniel was receiving this prophecy. It had already transitioned from Babylon. The Babylonian Empire had come to an end. It was taken over by the Medo-Persian Empire. And during the Medo-Persian Empire, Daniel is getting prophecy about what's going to be happening. So it starts with them, Cyrus the Great, king of the Persians. And it talks about 3 other Persian kings are going to come, the 4th of which is the wealthiest of all, and that is Xerxes the First. Well, during the reign of Xerxes the First, he started campaigning against the Greeks and started losing. That was the decline of the Persian Empire, was during Xerxes the First. The goat with the horn between its eyes, representing the transition from the Medo-Persian Empire to the Greek Empire from Daniel 8, is talking about Alexander the Great overtaking the Persian Empire. He was the goat with the great horn between his eyes. When you continue in Daniel 11, it continues to give a historical account of the king of the north, which is the Greek Empire in Syria, north of Israel, and the king of the south, which relates to the Ptolemaic Empire in Egypt. In the next verses, Daniel 11, 5 through 20, it's giving you a historical account of the Greek Empire and the Egyptian Empire during the intertestamental period. That is the 400 years between the book of Malachi and the book of Matthew, between the end of the Old Testament and the beginning of the New. So Daniel 11, 5 through 20 is giving you a history of those 400 years between the Old and New Testaments. For the purpose of this video, I am not going to go through that. And I probably won't go through much of it when I actually go through Daniel 11. I will provide resources for you to see what the historical account is of those verses. We shall see. However, continuing along in the book of Daniel, you are going to encounter Antiochus Epiphanes, which was horn 1 of 4 after Alexander the Great in the Greek Empire. His account is given in Daniel 11:21 through 35. Then there is a transition from Empire 3 to Empire 4 where it picks up talking about the beast of the 70th week, the beast and the 10 kings in Daniel 11:36 through 46. So hopefully you can see how all of this ties together. It is a great deal of information. I will probably put this graphic up on Academia. We shall see. I'm going to do more with some stuff in Revelation 17 imagery, but I did not have space to do it on here, and I kind of wanted to keep this specific to the book of Daniel. So I'll probably post this so you guys can see how all of this factors in. And as you can see, Rome is not in here. It may be mentioned in Daniel 9. We'll see. But for the purpose of the statue and the kingdoms and the beasts and how all of these things factor into the chapters in the book of Daniel, these are how it all works. As always, if you have any questions or comments, please let me know. I'll see you guys later.